Today, I want to talk about why I chose online university versus a traditional one. Reason number one, cost. So, according to my quick little Google search, the average cost of a college in the United States is about $38,270 per student per year. That is including books, supplies, and all of the daily living expenses. Y'all, listen to me when I say this. That is $153,080 total, assuming it only took you 4 years because you didn't A, fail, or B, switch your majors halfway through like I did. I did both of those things. But first, let me properly introduce myself. Hi, my name is Nara. I am a full-time assistant editor of social media and marketing for your favorite YouTubers, as well as a full-time business management student. I know, it's a lot, which is what makes me uniquely qualified to talk about this very topic. Speaking of which, please enjoy the rest of this video. So the reason why I ended up settling on Western Governors University, or WGU, my current school, and I'm again gonna read this off the script so I don't get it wrong, it's because a single semester, including all of their fees, is about $4,000. Or if you wanna do the standard 4-year track, that's 32 grand. Y'all, that is less than 1 year of the average American university. 4 years of online school is less than 1 year of the average American in-person university. Of course I chose online college. Are you kidding me? That is an atrociously large gap of cost that someone who isn't me should really look into, especially in this economy. And I want to stress here that I am by no means saying that 32K is not a lot of money, because that is a lot of money. That's like some people's year's worth of salary right there. It's a good chunk of mine, that's for sure. Now, full transparency here, I do already have an associate's degree. So for me going into WGU, I had a bunch of my credits transfer. I personally am not planning at being at WGU for more than 2 years. That means my, cost of 4 years, that 32K, gets cut in half down to 16 grand. Not to mention that there are things like scholarships and FAFSA. I personally wasn't able to acquire any type of assistance my first term of school this go around, but thanks to my big brain, I was able to get financial aid this term as of recording. Basically, my entire semester has been paid for, not by me, by financial aid, which has been such a big help. Oh my God. But that also means that I'm only paying 12 grand if I graduate on time. It is still a lot of money. But again, $12,000 versus the alternative of $158,000 some dollars to go in person onto a campus to get the same degree? I think not. Reason number two, time. Okay, upfront cost is obviously, I would say, the most important factor, especially in this day and age that we live in. But there is something to be said about the cost of time and how it might just be as lucrative as an upfront cost could be, which reminds me, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch a little old me on her little old channel. So if you like this video and you want to see more from me, please hit subscribe. All right, now back to what I was talking about. Thank you so much. Everything we do costs time, right? Like, I live in LA, which, if you didn't know, we're kind of known for having the worst traffic ever. I would argue Atlanta is worse because Atlanta is just a hellscape filled with cars, and you cannot change my mind. But I do admit that commute times in LA can be a lot for not large distances. So that was something I really had to take in consideration, is how I wanted to allocate and manage my time as best as possible. Because, let's say you get up to go to school and it takes you an hour. Even if the school is like, less than 20 miles away, it still takes you an hour because LA traffic just like be like that sometimes. And sometimes it takes you 2 hours, it's a game of Russian roulette out there. And that's what we love about her. But that is something to definitely take into consideration. And it's not even about the driving commute. I remember the first time I went to university back in 2019, 2020, I remember going to classes on like the far left side of campus. And then on the complete other side of campus was my next class. And I only had 15 minutes to walk from point A to point B. And I was almost always late. Same thing with like having to take the bus like from my apartment to my like first class in the morning. I was always going to be probably like 5 minutes late, which isn't great when you're trying to learn and then you like miss material and then you get tardies or absences from your teacher because they're really strict about you not being on time, even though I'm sorry, how am I supposed to walk from one side of campus to the other in 15 minutes? How? Please tell me how. And also just like not being able to like take breaks very easily. I remember when I was on campus, the way I'd have to like do this whole like mind map calendar in my head being like, okay, if I have a class at 8:15 and my next class is at 9:15, there's a kiosk, there's a vending machine on the way to class. If I get there and not a single person is in line and I already have my quarters in my hand because I put them in my hand before I left my 8:15 class to get to my 9:15 class, how long will it take for me to insert those quarters and get whatever snack? And I need to memorize what snacks are in the vending machine so I know which snacks to grab, because otherwise I'm not gonna eat till 3 p.m. Couldn't be me. I take my classes in my kitchen now. It's great. If I'm hungry, I just turn around and reach into the fridge or grab a bag of chips from the pantry. It's just so easy to get my coursework done because I can do it well from anywhere, like my kitchen, right here at my little filming station. I can do it on my bed. I could do it on the floor. I could do it, this is sounding really weird. I could do it in the public library. And by it, I mean studying specifically. But yeah, I can study pretty much anywhere. And it really just offers me extreme flexibility, which brings me to reason number 3. I have a full-time job. A few years ago, if you had asked me if I needed a degree to work in my career, I would have told you no. I'm in YouTube. So the whole reason I even started looking at colleges and universities again last year was because I had been laid off from my full-time, fully remote job for about 10 months total. And so somewhere within that unemployment stint, not only was I scaling the walls, clawing at the walls, going loopy-loony, and, just trying to figure out how to pay my rent, I really learned that because we are in a time where the labor market is so bad and there's no sugarcoating it, it is horrible, especially for Gen Z. I think the statistic right now is like it's a 4 point something like unemployment rate, but then it's like double that for people of the Gen Z demographic, which is really disheartening when you are freshly doe-eyed out of college or grad school and you can't get a job at all and you're like still living with your parents. Or in my case, you had a job, but then that job had no money and then you have no money. It's really, really stressful and it's super disheartening. And I do not wish unemployment like that on my worst enemy because, oh my God, I was losing my mind. That being said, because the labor market is so tough, there's so much competition right now. When I would go to apply to jobs, even if I was qualified or I was overqualified, it didn't matter. If, say Sally applied for the same job and we have the exact same credentials, but she has a bachelor's degree, it's more likely she's gonna get the job, right? So I kind of came to this realization during my unemployment that I was like, I can't keep putting off getting a bachelor's anymore. And that's not to say you can't get a job without a degree, because obviously it is possible. I've done it before. It's just so much harder right now with how rough the job market is. And so when I was applying to schools, I was working part-time at this like vegan place. While I was working there, I kind of had this idea in my head where if by some miracle I could manage to find a full-time job, that the system I had going at the time of working part-time and then doing school full-time wasn't going to cut it. At the end of the day, my problem was I needed a full-time job because I needed to be able to afford an apartment in LA and I needed to be able to afford food and gas. And a part-time job only goes so far. When I was finally at the point where I was like, I gotta pick a school. Like, I can't keep putting it off. I have to pick one. I just came to the conclusion where I was like, well, online schooling is really the only thing that makes sense for me, especially because I know I've had this be the case where you could have a class at 8 a.m. or you could have a class at 5:15 for some reason, because those are like your only two options. But if you're working the traditional 9 to 5, you can't, there's no way to be in school and be at work at the same time. And again, living in LA, you have all this traffic and it's impossible. And obviously things did work out in my favor because I work full time again in the YouTube like creator economy. And so it's great. Like I said, I can do schoolwork in my kitchen. I can do it here in my living room, but I can also like study at work when I'm like on lunch break. But yeah, it really just is about the extreme flexibility of having that classic 9 to 5 and being able to just open my laptop during my lunch break and eat my lunch and watch a lecture video or take a practice test or review Quizlet material. It just makes things so much easier, and I don't have to worry about commute times necessarily because I can just kind of do school from wherever. But that does also come with some downsides, which brings me on to the bonus section, the trade-offs of online learning. Now, as much as I love remote learning and I will be its number one cheerleader until the day I die, I never want to over glorify anything. I don't ever want to come across as like consumerist, like you got to buy this one because this is the only one, and don't buy those other things, like the one I'm telling you to buy, this is the one you should buy. I'm just telling you guys my personal experience and why this worked the best for me. You take that information to make your own informed decision, and I always implore you to do your own research, especially if you're going to be spending money, especially if it's on a degree, and especially if that degree is worth thousands and thousands of dollars. So the first potential con, I'm just going to say it, the extreme flexibility can be a negative, which I know is crazy because I was just praising it like 2.5 seconds ago. So you're probably thinking to yourself, what do you mean that's a bad thing? I thought you said it was a good thing. Well, you know, the old saying, with great power comes like great responsibility or whatever. Since I've started at WGU, and because I can do school from anywhere at any time, I tend to find myself falling victim to two very bad mindsets. The first being, oh, I can just do that later because I can do it whenever. In my first semester, I was just procrastinating the whole time. And it was honestly so embarrassing the way that I had this one class in particular. I think when I did the math, it collectively took me 8 hours of like active working time to complete, but I spent a month and a half enrolled in the class just because I didn't want to do it. So I kept being like, well, I can do it whenever, so I'll just not do it right now. Yeah, so that was definitely not my finest moment. And the second not great mindset that I feel like can happen when you have extreme flexibility from a remote school is kind of the opposite, which is what I would call the quote unquote grind set mindset, which is essentially just like toxic productivity. I will admit I have fallen victim to this many times, because not to say that you shouldn't be productive, because that's kind of like, you want to be productive, right? Like we all strive to be productive and get things done and have a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment in the things we do, which is great. I love that. The problem is when you take it too far and it becomes, instead of a, oh, well, you know, I have such extreme flexibility, so I can do it whenever, so I'm going to do it all right now, right? But then you like bump it up to like 120. You kind of just choose to get stuff done because it's so convenient, instead of like cultivating healthy friendships or having fun or spending time with your loved ones. I know I have definitely done that. Again, complete opposite of the other problem, but I think it's worth mentioning, especially with how gig worky, how freelancy Gen Z kind of has to be, with us all working like 2 to 3 jobs, having like 2 to 3 side hustles. You know, obviously like you want to do well in school, but there is a fine line you can cross where you go just a little too far down the toxic productivity rabbit hole. And then next thing you know, it's been like a month and a half since you've seen anybody and you don't know what sunshine looks like. The second potential trade-off here is, I think, honestly, the hardest when it comes to online learning, and that is friendships, or more specifically, being forced to connect with other people because of sheer proximity. Because you're remote, you can be anywhere at any time, and you can theoretically just be in your room all day. It's a lot harder to make connections, especially if you don't already have pre-existing friendships. And that was one thing that they brought up during my orientation was you're going to have to communicate to your friends and your loved ones and your family that you might have to readjust the way you spend your time because you have to, give more time to school. So you just have to be mindful of how you're balancing like spending time with friends versus doing schoolwork. But if you maybe don't have friends because you're isolated, or maybe you like went from a high school that you didn't really have any like good friends coming out of, and then you just jump straight into online learning, making friends can be really hard. And I know what some of y'all are thinking. I know I hear the introverts right now typing up in the comments being like, well, actually, I'm an introvert, so I don't need anyone. Bullshit. I call bullshit. And I'm not saying you need to go like clubbing every night or that you need to like really go out every night, period. Everyone needs healthy friendships. We do not need any more lonely men. We need community. Everyone needs healthy friendships, god damn it. Anyway, the third and final trade-off I want to address is in a similar vein to friendship, and that is networking, which is essentially just making professional and social connections. This can help you get jobs, internships, get into events that maybe you find interesting or are relevant to your career, or really like any other opportunity in a similar vein. That's really all networking is creating opportunities through connections. And online schools do have ways to help you do that. There's plenty of networking hubs in my university, and I know Instagram just launched their like university tags on people's profiles. So like I joined the Western Governors University Instagram story, which is like you can only access it if you are a student there. The same goes for Harvard. If you're a Harvard student, you can go to Instagram and say that like I go to Harvard, and once they approve it, you can have access to like all the Harvard exclusive stories. There are ways to network. Like it is possible. It's just a hell of a lot harder. I think again, there's something to be said about being forced into a room of people that are either in the same major as you or are into the same things as you. For example, when I was in university the first time, the way I have to differentiate which time, when I was in university the first time back in 2019, I was part of the film guild, which was like the film club there. And through being part of that film guild, I was then able to participate in a weekend short film festival competition where I, by my peers, was picked to be the video editor, and I got a Best Editing Award nomination. We did not win, unfortunately, but we were nominated. And because of that award nomination, I now have an IMDb page. It has like 2 things on it, but I have one, and that's what matters. I wouldn't have been able to participate in that film festival if I hadn't physically been there. Some opportunities truly only happen when you're in a shared space. By being a remote learner, you really have to make more of an effort to meet and reach out to people. And again, there are ways to do it. Online schools do tend to have programs. You just have to make that effort. I'm really fortunate that I do live in LA now, so it is a lot easier. I try my best to go out to every content creator event that I can find. Especially when I was unemployed, I would try to use that to network and maybe get jobs or try to position myself to get closer to getting to jobs. You really never know who you're going to meet and what that could lead to. I also have a lot of connections from jobs I've worked, like working at Mr. Beast. Subtle name drop. I even participate in online communities like Edit Hers. It's a female coalition of YouTube editors and creators that my dear friend Rachel created, and I met her by working at Mr. Beast. Overall, I think online learning was the best decision for me, and I think it can be a great solution for a lot of us, whether it be because of money, time, or flexibility. Again, especially right now, I would really implore you to do your research on every school you possibly can to really decide if online learning is the choice for you. And I hope that my little rant here today can maybe shed a little more light on that for you as someone who is balancing a full-time career, paying for her own place and wanting to get a degree. My camera died and it overheated, so I'm gonna do the outro on my phone, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button down below and hit the subscribe button so I know that you want to see more content like this from me and you can more easily find me. And also, I would love to hear from you guys. Please leave a comment if you find this topic interesting, if you want to hear more about my experiences with school, being an online learner, and also like juggling working full-time, or, you know, hear about my thoughts and my experience working within the creator economy. I have an extreme interest in topics like burnout, creativity, balancing between the two, balancing work and life. I think these are really important topics and I would love to talk more about them. So I just want to know if like that's something you guys are interested in, and if there's like anything in particular you want me to cover or have questions about, let me know. I will gladly make a video about it. I'm always down to find inspiration, and I just really want to connect with you guys. Like, community is super important to me. That's why I do YouTube. I just like feeling like I'm a part of something, and I like creating. That's just like who I am. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this week's video. I will see you next time. Love you the most. Bye.